Brothers and sisters, I'm sure you are tired of hearing about viruses. Nevertheless, I have a virus, not the COVID virus. I have no physical ailments, but I think I've picked up some sort of technological virus. For those of you who have been looking for our online masses that Father Joy and I have been celebrating, I have not been able somehow to download them. So either my phone picked up a virus, or my computer picked up a virus, or the internet picked up a virus. I don't know, but that's my explanation for why y'all haven't received those masses. So viruses everywhere. What can I say? Anyway, I'm going to borrow from my homily that I gave yesterday, which couldn't be put up online, but was brilliant. So since I don't want to lose that brilliance, I thought I'd go ahead and use my own homily. In our first reading today from the Acts of the Apostles, we see Philip, a disciple of the Lord, traveling to Samaria to preach the good news of salvation. It occurred to me how difficult travel was in the first century. This is a continuation of passages we've been reading in the daily Gospels about, or in the daily readings about the Acts of the Apostles, that first century, those early days when the gospel was new and being taken to all parts of the known world. And we can probably, in some ways, take it for granted, the hardships that people faced as they brought the gospel message of salvation to others. You know, for example, one of the things I always enjoy when I'm coming back from a trip east, as I cross the Louisiana border, there's a sign that says El Paso, 784 miles. I don't remember the exact number, but it's from one extreme to the other, from the eastern border of Texas all the way to the western border. And it just gives you an idea of how immense our state is. You know, if you travel from that point to El Paso, if you're going about 70 miles an hour, it's still going to take you 11 hours just to cross the state. And obviously, in places in the east, if you traveled that far, you'd cross 4 or 5 states, possibly, and many, many different cities along the way. Well, imagine travel in the Middle East in the first century without an automobile, and for most people, I mean, horses were expensive. Only wealthy people had them, or were given them if they had an important task. So every place was traveled to on foot. So we're talking about, immense travel times and all the hardships of the road in those days. There were natural dangers from wildlife and other things, from sandstorms, from sunstroke. There were human dangers, robbers, bandits waiting along the road to take what you had. And yet these disciples braved all of that. In other words, they didn't let anything stand in the way of their spreading the gospel to others who needed to hear it. So in our gospel today, Philip preaches to the Samaritans. The Samaritans are familiar to us. In one sense, Philip had an easier job than others. Jesus had already prepared the way for preaching the gospel to the Samaritans. Recall the story of him traveling to a Samaritan town and encountering a woman at a well. And there she embraced the gospel. And then she went and started spreading it throughout the town. Is he the Christ? Is he the one? And we're told at the end of that gospel, that a passage, that they came to believe, not because of what the woman had said, but because they heard Jesus himself. And you can only imagine, we don't know if that's the same city that Philip goes to, but the word would spread from there to others. Perhaps this Jesus of Nazareth is the Christ. Perhaps he is the Messiah. So when Philip arrives and says he was and explains to them the scriptures, they come to readily accept that truth. But it's interesting what happens in that passage, because we're told that they then send Peter and John to the same place. Now, Peter and John represent the church. Philip was a member of the church. Philip was a follower of Christ and a disciple, but he didn't represent the official church. And that's what happened in the early centuries of the faith. There was the notion that, well, a lot of people were spreading the good news, but not always the same message, not always the orthodox message, if you will. It was wonderful that the Gentiles were accepting the message, but they came from many different backgrounds and many different beliefs and philosophies, and so they needed to hear the official truth. It says that Peter and John prayed over them, laid hands on them, and they received the Holy Spirit. That's interesting. Because again, we are told they were baptized, but only in the name of the Lord. As we know today in our Catholic faith, you baptize in the Trinity, in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's what makes it a valid baptism in the church's eyes. And so it was this official representation of the church that brought the Samaritans into the fold, as it were. And this was happening all across the Middle East at that time. Bottom line is the message was spreading. Spreading. That's something we're also hearing a whole lot about, isn't it? The coronavirus spreads. That's why it's so dangerous. It spreads so fast, so easily. Okay. Well, brothers and sisters, I'm going to show you that the coronavirus has nothing on your faith. That spreads a whole lot easier and a whole lot quicker. What are we told in our second reading from Peter's first letter? It's about hope. We have hope. We as Christians, faithful, we have hope. Easter is a time of hope. Easter is a time to be joyful in that hope. That joy, that hope, can be spread faster than any virus. So, now, you at home can't do this, but I have something else in mind for you. Everybody else, turn to one another and smile. Smile. Can you tell that the person is smiling through that mask? You can, can't you? That mask can't prevent that smile, that hope. That's because we smile with more than just our mouths. Our eyes light up. Our face makes a wonderful expression. People can see that we're smiling. Brothers and sisters, if you're smiling in this difficult time, don't you think people are going to ask, why are you happy? Why are you smiling? That's why Peter says, well, witness to your faith then. Tell them why. It's Jesus Christ. He's risen from the dead. Hope lives in the world. Why would I not be smiling? I have to smile. I have to smile. Now, brothers and sisters at home, I imagine if you're at home, you're not wearing a mask, so that didn't work. But I want you to look at one another and give a big smile to each other. See how quickly that spreads amongst your family. And doesn't that make things better? Doesn't the difficulties of our circumstance just fade away when we smile, when we're joyful, when we laugh? And why shouldn't we? I don't care what there is out there, what obstacle it is. Jesus gives us hope. Jesus gives us joy. And Jesus, too, sends us the Holy Spirit. We are told that in our gospel today. Jesus, by ascending to the Father, said, I'll send you another advocate. Oh, how we need an advocate. An advocate is someone who stands for us, who is with us, a protector, a guardian. The Holy Spirit can be all of that for us. And more importantly, he gives us those words of hope. I live, and you will live. That's what Easter is about. The Lord lives. He rose from the dead. The cross did not conquer him. Death did not conquer him. That is Easter joy, brothers and sisters. And because he lives, we will live. We will live. Nothing can conquer that either. Jesus tells us, whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and reveal myself. Brothers and sisters, there again, all we have to do is be steadfast in our love of the Lord, in our love of the risen Jesus, and he will show us himself. He will show us that he is the ultimate hope and joy of our lives. And it's simple human nature to want to hope, and Jesus is that hope for us. So, I'm hoping that in the next few days, weeks maybe, some are saying months, we won't even have to hear from anybody about viruses. But until then, know, brothers and sisters, that the Lord cannot be conquered by any virus. And you, on the other hand, can conquer the virus by being a source of hope and joy for those around you.